This episode is brought to you by Kia's first three-row, all-electric SUV, the Kia EV9, with available all-wheel drive and seating for up to 7 adults, with 0 to 60 speed that thrills you 1 minute and available lounge seats that unwind you the next. Visit kia.com/EV9 to learn more. Ask your Kia dealer for availability. No system, no matter how advanced, can compensate for all driver error and or driving conditions. Always drive safely.
A science story, huh?
These NYU scientists,
I felt
right.
I was so
And I just thought, well,
I had figured it out.
it was that golden moment.
Because science was on my side.
Hey everyone, I'm Ben Lilly, and welcome to the Story Collider, where we bring you true stories of how science has affected people's lives. This week's story is from Ben Moskowitz. The story was recorded in June 2013 at Drom in New York City. The theme of the night was Lost.
Well, I guess it all started in Miss Walker's first grade class. She called me up after everybody had gone to recess and asked me to stay behind. And, well, my natural thought is I was in trouble because, that's what they do. But, she showed me, said, "No, Ben, you're not in trouble. We just wanted to let you know that since you're such a special young man, that we're going to put you in some good classes. Is that what you want?" And, well, I had nothing against being a special or young or a man, so that's how I was tricked into being convinced that I needed therapy. Now, you might think that therapy might be scary to a child, but to me, I thought it meant that I was special, like Peter Parker was special, and being bitten by a radioactive spider and not dying. And for me, I had 2 therapies, so that made me doubly special. Such that on my first day of therapy, I waited till the clock striked 10:30, shot my hand in the air, and go like, "Miss Walker, it's time for me to go to therapy." And I strutted down the hallway to the special annex to where I was supposed to meet Miss Gale. Now, Miss Gale was the biggest woman I had ever seen in my life at that time. And she was sitting in a little kid's chair, so it made her even look proportionally bigger. And she had a huge grin on her face. But I was still pretty scared because, you don't see giants like that often. And she was like, "Oh, you must be Ben. Welcome to my class. Please sit down. Yeah, your sister is one of my patients, too." And during this time of my life, my sister was my compatriot because we both had the same accent. Now, it's not really an accent. We just both have the same way we speak. I don't actually remember when I first realized that I spoke differently than most people because it's just been that way my entire life. I mean, we used to play a game when we were kids, trying to convince people we were from far-off distant lands like Lithuania or South Africa or Laos. And it was all fun. We all laughed, and people would believe us. But in the end, just made us different and united. But knowing that my sister was in Miss Gale's class made me feel special. And she told me that she was going to be my speech therapist and help me learn how to speak correctly. And I, sat down in her class, and she said, "We're going to do these exercises where we just repeat sounds to help you develop muscle memory, so you can pronounce words correctly. Now, can you do R's and L's?" And she made me do a ra, 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 and la, 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 la. And now this is all, seems like an easy thing to do, but I didn't know if I was doing it right or wrong unless Miss Gale told me I was doing it right or wrong. So I got no sense of personal satisfaction, and it was completely boring. And I really hated going to speech, and even though I strutted down the hallway, I sadly walked back. The next therapy was occupational therapy, which is Thursday after, with Miss Wise. Now, Miss Wise was completely different than Miss Gale. She was small, petite, very clinical, always hold a clipboard, and just the classic scientist. But her class I loved because all we did was play puzzles and do games and kick balls and squeeze things and do, occupational therapy things. I loved everything about occupational therapy except for the snake. Now, the snake was this 5-segment stuffed animal that was divided with fasteners for each of the things. It had buttons, a buckle, a zipper, and a string. Now, the purpose of the snake was that you're supposed to disconnect the entire snake in under a minute and put it back together. So Every time I came up to there, I started off my thing. I looked at the clock, waited till the minute hand struck 12, so I didn't have to count time, so I knew exactly when to begin. So I stood there, wait. I began. So then I would unbuckle, unbutton, unzip, untie, remove all the strings, and have it all fall apart. And then I looked back at the clock, and it was 30 seconds had passed. I was like, oh man, I only have 30 seconds left. So I tried to rush back together. I buttoned back together. I buckled back together, and I zipped it back together. And I tried to lace the strings back together, but by that time my fingers had become so tired I couldn't do it anymore. And I looked back, and my time was gone. And I could never do it. I never able to do it. I just tried, and the snake was undefeatable. Well, after a couple months of therapy, they had switched my first grade class from Miss Walker's class to Miss Sick's class. And now, my first grade year of school, I had 4 teachers, which was very confusing for me. But so I had learned that, Miss Walker was the remedial teacher and Miss Sisk was the advanced teacher. So we did advanced things like take spelling tests. And I took my first spelling test in the class, and I totally bombed it. And I thought, oh, well, this is my first spelling test. This is new. I can do better next time, which I didn't. And then I said, nope, next time, and nope, and again, nope, again, no, no. And after a while, I just you know what? Something must be wrong with Miss Sisk, because I can pass every subject but spelling, and she's obviously not the smartest teacher. So I would walk up and I showed her my paper, and I was like, look, all these answers are right. And then she went systematically and pointed to me each and every problem that was with my thing, and it felt like pins just pricking me in the heart, because when I looked at it before, I didn't see it, but when she pointed it out to me, I could. See, I never known that I had a learning disability until even I was up to college. No one had told me. I suffer from developmental dyspraxia and dysgraphia, which is basically I have limited fine motor skills, and the speech part of my brain, language part of my brain, doesn't communicate correctly with the motor part of my brain, so I can't put things in order correctly. But the mind, it wants to work correctly. And so every time I see or hear mistakes that I've made or other people have made, my mind just does this autocorrect. And I just see it perfectly. It doesn't look wrong. So I can never actually see my problems, which makes me a really terrible editor. Don't ask me to proofread your papers. Because I would just think, oh, it's perfect. So I even, in college, I asked my mom why she never told me that I had a learning disability. And she said, well, it's just a word, Ben. We didn't want to make it define you. You wanted you to grow up to be your own person, which is good and fine when I'm an adult. But when I was a kid, back in the first grade, I just felt so lost, and I didn't know who I was, and I just thought I was just stupid. And I remember one day I was just riding in the back of my dad's, Euro van and driving to the town, and I was just crying. I was like, what's wrong? And I said, I feel like Alexander the Great. It's like, what? And I said, wait, didn't he, get sad when he realized that he couldn't conquer any more worlds? I don't feel like I can do anything anymore. And so, my mom said, well, that's pretty sad that, you feel lost at 7. And my dad said, did you really want to conquer the world? I said, well, I didn't want to cross it off the table. My dad said, well, let me tell you a story about Alexander. And this is a common thing about my parents. One of the part of my therapies was to encourage, love of the written word or language or anything, that you should read and tell stories to kids with dysgraphia and dyspraxia, so they, don't become unenlightened adults, which I guess worked. But my dad would tell me the story. So let me tell you a story about Alexander, he said. It's the story of the Gordian knot. I was like, okay. And he says, well, long ago, Alexander was walking to this town called Gordian, and there was this huge knot that was tied on this chariot. And it was said that no man could untie the knot. Well, Alexander, being the great man that he was, thought, well, I need more people in my army. Maybe if I untie this thing, everybody will realize how great I am, and they want to join me, because I guess they didn't have TV back then, and they were impressed with more simple things. So he looked at the knot and thought that, no, I can't start anymore. So he just took his sword out and just cut it in half. And there, all the soothsayers and the oracles and what have you all said, oh, this means Alexander the Great's going to take over the world. And I told my dad, isn't that cheating? And my mom goes, no, that's lateral thinking. I was like, well, it so sounded like cheating to me. But I thought for a while, and I thought, okay, maybe I can apply this. Maybe if I can apply some thinking outside of the box to maybe spelling tests, maybe I can do a little bit better. So I had thought, well, what am I good at doing? Well, I mean, in OT, I'm great at doing puzzles. Well, maybe I should approach spelling like a puzzle. So I looked around the room, and like if the spelling word was mother, I noticed that on the calendar, the word month was there. And if I took the N out of month and put the ER on there, that spelled mother. And that was great. I can do all the words like that. And like, so it might seem very complicated and a roundabout way of spelling things, but it worked much clearer in my head that way. So I did that. And if I couldn't find another weird way to spell the word, I just wrote the word a lot for my speech therapy to learn muscle memory. And I knew this wasn't spelling, it was lateral thinking. And after I applied this to my first test, I passed, and I started passing spelling tests. And I thought, well, this is great. Maybe I can apply this to the snake. So I took the snake out, and I go to OP, and I go like, okay, Miss Wise, I can do the snake. She's like, okay. She hands me the snake. And so I begin, go straight through. I unbuckle it, unzip it, unbutton it, and then untie it. But I don't unlace it all the way because I think, well, I'd only have to take it apart. I don't have to unlace it all the way. So I did that, and it's apart. Then I put it back together, but the first thing I did was lace it first, because that's the thing that made my hands tired. So I laced it first, tied it back together, re-zipped it, rebuttoned, and rebuckled it, and there were 10 seconds left. And I felt like I'd conquered the world again. Thank you.
That was Ben Moskowitz. Ben is from Glen St. Mary, Florida. He works as an audiovisual preservationist at New York University. He is a Moth Grand Slam champion and a pretty nice guy. He currently lives in Brooklyn with his 2 cats, Scotty and Viva. For more science stories, take a look at storycollider.org, where we have archives of the podcast and upcoming events. Our next shows are July 23rd in New York and August 27th in Boston. The Story Collider is produced by me, Brian Wecht, Aaron Barker, and Ari Daniel Shapiro. The podcast is produced by Rose Eveleth. Additional help from Brooke Williams, Lena Groger, and Justin D'Ambrosio. The theme music is by Ghost. Special thanks to Drom for hosting the show, and to my school for never using a teaching tool on me called a snake. I'm terrified of snakes. Okay, I'm a wuss. Thanks for listening.
It's time to get your checking account to zero with free checking from PenFed. That's zero ATM fees, zero balance requirements, and zero time spent waiting for your paycheck to direct deposit because you can receive it up to 2 days early. Open your account with just $25 and see how big zero can be. Apply online today at penfed.org/free checking. Early direct deposit eligibility may vary between pay periods and timing of payer's funding. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA.
PenFed's got great rates.